Hello and welcome to the oncoming brainstorm, here today to talk about Season 5 of Bojack Horseman. I've not made a video for a while and I felt like this was the perfect opportunity to just jump back on the horse, get making videos again, and here we are with Season 5 of this incredible Netflix series that I love to bits. I adore Bojack Horseman and I've been watching it since around Season 3 came out. That's when I got into the show, really enjoyed it. And when Season 4 came out, I was just waiting and waiting for that, and yeah, every year I'm just waiting for the next Bojack now. And because I'm not working today, I thought it was a perfect opportunity, as this was coming out on this Friday, just to literally binge the whole season in one go, to spoil myself basically and be a sad bastard and just watch all 12 episodes in one go and see how I feel. And I loved Season 5. Now, for now, I'm going to do a spoiler-free section of this video, so no spoilers. You can watch this video before you go into Season 5 without being spoiled anything. I'll just give you little hints as to how I feel and where this series might be going, but I won't spoil anything, and then I'll get into the spoilers afterwards. So, what are my overall thoughts on Season 5? Excellent. Really enjoyed it. I'd argue this is probably the most experimental season of Bojack. It does some really interesting things with narrative, and I think because now the show is more popular and there's a bigger budget, it really takes advantage of the fact that it is an animation. It's a cartoon, so visually it's the best looking series, and it's the most experimental, the most different, it changes stuff a lot. You have to wait and see what I mean, but it does some really cool stuff, especially when we get past the halfway point of the series. And I love this season. It's probably my second favourite season of the series. Not quite as good as Season 4. I feel like Season 4 had a really strong beginning, middle and end. A really good character arc for Bojack and all the main characters, and it just felt very cohesive and almost like it's its own thing. This season feels a bit sloppier. Oh, not in a terrible way, it's just a bit more all over the place. There's a lot of chaotic storylines. Obviously you've got Bojack with Filbert, this new TV show that he's on. He's the guest, he's the main star, and the kind of the showrunner Flip and his relationship with the showrunner and Bojack, very interesting. Princess Carolyn helping out with Filbert. So a lot of the series is just centered around Bojack and his new show and how that affects him. Really interesting stuff. We get a lot more Bojack this season than Season 4, which I really appreciated. And I feel like we get a lot more Todd as well. Todd had a lot more funny moments, and I'll just say this season is hilarious. I was pissing myself. There is a lot of callbacks to previous seasons, a lot of characters that you may have not seen for a while, and bam, shock return, or little Easter eggs, you know, calling back to old episodes. I loved it. There were some moments that just made me laugh out loud, and absolutely loved. Certain storylines I wasn't too keen on. There's a few with Todd in particular that made me a bit I felt like Mr. Peanut Butter didn't get much to do this season. He was kind of off in the background. I guess because we got so much of him in Season 4. You know, he's kind of pushed to the side just a little bit. I really enjoyed Diane this season. Diane started to annoy me a little bit in Season 3 and 4, where she seemed very unsure of herself and very, you know, all over the place. With this season, I feel like they did her character much better justice, and there's a few episodes in there of this season, one in particular that really hit deep with me, and I never thought I'd relate to Diane like that, but I think Alison Brie's voice acting work is fantastic. And there's one particular episode where I just think it might be the best episode of the whole show. Obviously I'll talk about this in the spoiler review later on in the video, but yes, there is one particular episode very heavily focused on Bojack and Will Arnett and his voice work, and it's fantastic. See, I'm finding it very hard not to spoil stuff, but for now, I think this was a great season, a sensational season of television, as the showrunner Flip says. Not as good as Season 4, but still absolutely fantastic, and I loved it. Obviously, it might take a bit of time for me to really digest all the episodes and get a really clear view, but for now, I loved this season, and I think if you're a fan of Bojack Horseman, go for it, go watch them. Show Netflix that this series is loved by people, and it deserves more attention, I think. So yeah, let's get into the spoilers of Season 5 now. If you haven't seen it, go do it, get the hell out, and come back later on when you've seen the series. Okay, so yeah, the episodes in particular that really grabbed me, where I think, let me just get it up on Netflix right here, episode 2, the dog days are over. Holy shit, this episode hit me really hard. It's a very Diane focused episode. It's all about her and her going back to her roots, visiting Vietnam. Fantastic. Really hit home for me. As someone who doesn't really know his roots, that's something I've always been very interested in finding out. Like, you know, where do you come from? You know, is that a way to find happiness, to go back to your roots? And the fact that Diane feels lonely no matter where she is, she just feels out of place no matter where she goes. That is something I think nearly everyone can relate to, and Jesus, it hit me hard. And in particular, Diane seeing Mr. Peanut Butter with Pickles and the new girlfriend so quickly, almost like his rebound in a way. God, it's just really sad, and like, she wanted this, she wanted to be divorced, but then now she's actually seeing it before her, and it just breaks her. It just got me, and I was tearing up by episode 2. That was mesmerising. And the next episode that I thought was absolutely incredible might be my favourite episode of the show, and it is really competing against Time's Arrow, you know, season 4's Time's Arrow as being the best. FREE.to, which is episode 6 of season 5. Holy crap. This episode, it just broke me. It was so damn good, and it was so good at being funny and so emotional at the same time. I don't know how the showrunners do it, how they balance and juggle comedy and tragedy at the same time, but this episode really represents what I absolutely love. It kind of reminds me of stuff like Breaking Bad with The Fly, like how some people wouldn't really like this episode possibly because it's so focused on Bojack. It's so just hones in on Will Arnett. He's the only voice in this episode, a bit like Heaven Sent with Doctor Who as well. He's the only speaking character in this episode, Bojack and Butterscotch's dad. Great flashback, by the way, but Jesus, that episode was incredible, and I don't think there's words to describe how good Will Arnett is in that episode. To juggle that kind of comedy and the tragedy to create this great black comedy about Bojack and his relationship with his mum, and we never see Beatrice. That is the heartbreaking part, and that end punchline when you just realise he's not even in the right bloody funeral service. I was pissing myself laughing. To have your audience go so emotional to pissing yourself laughing, that is talent. That is pure genius. And FREE.to might be my favourite episode of the whole show, so this is why I love season 5, because it has arguably one of the best episodes of the whole show. So, moving on from that incredible episode, I also really liked Interior Sub, because it kind of focused a lot on these therapists that obviously know a lot about the main characters, and almost seeing their perspective, and they're not allowed to mention the names of their clients, so they have to change Bojack's name to Bobo, the angsty zebra, and they do it in the title sequence. Genius. I loved that one. And I would say episode 11 was incredible as well. It reminded me a lot of Downer Ending. This one's called the Showstopper. How Bojack, it reminded me a lot of the Downer Ending because in season 1, because Bojack can't tell what's real or not. But I think in some ways it's actually almost better than Downer Ending, because Downer Ending was very experimental, very weird, very out there, and really just broke the format and was just crazy drug trip, and you felt like you were on drugs. You were there with Bojack, just like, what is going on? The Showstopper actually does that the drug trip, you know, kind of episode we've seen before in Bojack, but it ties into the main story with Filbert, with Bojack being this detective. And he can't tell what's real and what's not. He can't tell what's the TV show and what's Bojack. You know, the lines between Bojack and Filbert are just completely blurred here. And like Gina says, his new love interest, he's bringing the character home with him. Great stuff, and yet really dark. Some of these episodes go some really dark places, especially like there's a lot of stuff with the kind of the Me Too stuff, with hashtag Me Too, like with Diane and Bojack having this kind of conflict, and you know, about going back to Escape to LA, and it's just, there's a lot of callbacks to previous seasons, and I felt like season 4 was very much getting away from that. Season 4 was almost about, the main theme and focus of the last season almost seemed to be about breaking cycles, about making a change for the better, and not hanging on to past pain, letting go. This season is very much about you know, even if you do that, your past will always in some way haunt you and come to bite you back in the ass at some point. And that's what I felt like this season was very much about. A lot of Bojack's previous tragedies, they're still there. You can't just be happy and happy-go-lucky. Oh yeah, Hollyhock's in his life, great, but he's done some shitty things, and he has to live with that every day. That was incredible. And a good surprise, not just, oh, Bojack's happy now, and yeah, la-da-la-da-la. You know, I can understand how people might be a bit frustrated, because, you know, we see Bojack go through so much progress in Season 4, and then in Season 5, he almost doesn't revert back to previous seasons, because he still has like a... I think he treats the people around him a lot better than he did in previous seasons, up until the point where he has the kind of drug hallucinations and he has no idea what's going on. For the most part, he's treating Hollyhock pretty well. He treats Princess Carolyn quite well. He's not as twatty as he was in Season 1, 2 or 3. I think Season 3 is probably the darkest season. This one's more experimental, I'd say. It's the most experimental, most out there. It plays with narrative a lot. I also really like the Halloween episode, because we got to see a lot of origins of the characters, particularly Todd. How Bojack and Todd met, that was great. I loved that. There was a lot of Easter eggs and stuff, callbacks to, you know, previous stuff. Margot Martindale, in that kind of pre-title sequence of episode 10, I think it is, Head in the Clouds. I loved that, but I wanted to see more of her. There wasn't enough. So for any complaints of the season, because obviously I've been kissing the arse of the show quite a bit, I've been very positive. I need to kind of bring out some stuff that annoyed me. There was a lot of reference to the male gaze in episode 1, and that annoyed me. It was like it's almost like the show's being a bit too meta in this season. It's being a bit too self-aware. So, you know, male gazy, to throw those words out there constantly, we just kind of, it annoyed me a bit. It's like, okay, I get it, you're trying to make a point on Hollywood and the male gaze, but if you keep just throwing that trigger word out there, the impact of it is less empowering, and it's more like, okay, I get it, you're spoon feeding me Hollywood, you know, male gaze. There's a lot of toxic masculinity in Hollywood, Hollywood. Yeah, I get it. Come on, get to the point. Episode 3 is probably the weakest of the season, where, yeah, I don't know, with Todd and the axolotl girl, I just don't understand where they went with that. I get it, they're asexual and maybe they're not right for each other, but I had no like connection to that relationship. You know, there was no moment of them even enjoying each other's company. It just felt very much like the writers had ended on Season 4 on that point where Todd and her supposedly get together, but then we cut to Season 5 and they're already having problems, and it's like there was no moment of me going, yeah, I get this couple. It was just sort of, yeah, they were kind of together because they happened to both be asexual. I mean, it just seemed like the writers didn't know where to go, and then with this season they really push in your face that Todd is asexual, and it's mainly played for laughs this season, which is a lot weaker than Season 3 and 4, because then when they referenced Todd's sexuality, it just happened to be a thing. It wasn't spoon-fed or pushed in your face or played really for laughs all that much, and if it was pretty funny and pretty subtle. There was no subtlety to Todd's asexuality this season. It's become almost like a caricature, like a trait of his personality now, which is bad. That's not how you represent sexuality. So that was a bit frustrating for me. I didn't like all the... It was funny in the moment of episode 3 when you had like, is it Iowanda? I can't remember her name. But the axolotl girl, the axolotl family were just weird and very kinky and sexual, and like, I just found that whole routine and joke just not very funny or interesting, so that kind of disappointed me. I liked Emily coming back into Todd's life and Todd creating this crazy sex robot that, you know, one of his wacky hijinks actually leads to a lot of shit by the end of the season. So that was very funny, and Todd just killing the the robot right at the end in some dramatic way. I was pissing myself at some of the sex jokes with the sex robot. It was great. So yeah, there's just so much to unpack here. It's hard to like condense it down, but yeah, I think Mr. Peanut Butter and Pickles, very interesting relationship. Peanut Butter's almost becoming like kind of reflective of his past relationships in this season, which I really liked. All the stuff with Diane, I loved this season. I thought it was great. Anything else that's a bit weak? I'd say Gina. Like, I really like her as a character, but in the first few episodes, she's very underdeveloped. Like, it just kind of, her and Bojack just seem to very quickly, and it's kind of just, it feels a bit lazy and forced. It makes sense in terms of Bojack's character, but to get him to that point, it just felt very... And then later on, she gets a lot more development, and you kind of feel that Bojack and her could be good together. Obviously, it ain't gonna last because this is Bojack Horseman. But yeah, so at the beginning of the season, I'd say the season, like Gina as well, like her character, the show doesn't really come to life until episode 6 for me, until FREE.to, until that amazing episode. Every episode after that is incredible. Like from episode 6 to 12 onwards, brilliant. I would argue the finale is a little weak. Like, it's good, I enjoy it, just not as strong as past ones. And I would say this season doesn't really end on a super depressing note or a super happy note. It ends on a very neutral, I don't know, just very neutral. Just very like, some of the characters have happy endings, some of them don't. Princess Carolyn finally gets to adopt a baby. I'm a bit disappointed that Ralph isn't there. I really want them to get back together, but you can't have everything, can you? So I'm just glad she's finally adopted a baby, and I think she'll be a very good mother. And I think she learns to kind of put her kid before her work. That's very nice. Obviously Diane and Peanut Butter, you know, slept together even after being divorced, and that's going to kind of throw poor old Pickles into the mix, because I really like Pickles as a character. She's probably the best new character for me. I really enjoyed her. And yeah, Mr. Peanut Butter just throwing himself down and going, marry me. You can see a lot of past cycles repeating itself, and him, he can't bear bad news. He can't be negative. He almost has to always be positive. That's interesting. And I think we're going to go on a bit of I think Peanut Butter's story is going to end on a kind of a tragic note rather than a happy note. But we'll have to wait and see. You know, I thought this season would be the depressing Peanut Butter season, but it wasn't. He was still happy-go-lucky. I guess that's the character for you. He doesn't change, and that's the fun part about him. And Bojack, yeah, I loved all the hallucinations, and him kind of being addicted to drugs was really interesting. And him not being able to tell between, you know, the character and himself. You know, he brought the show home with him. He couldn't make that distinction. Fascinating. And I think him going into rehab is a very smart way to end the season. But I really feel like this might be his last chance at being a better person, because every season we have, you know, can Bojack be better? And we have glimpses of him being better. He really needs to just knuckle down and do the everyday mundane bullshit. That's what you have to do to be a better person or a good person. You have to be willing to, like, not just have instant gratification at your hands constantly, you know, like stuff like substances, like drugs, alcohol, sex. These things are very quick highs. They're very quick ways to get happiness in a contained moment, but long term they don't last. And I think Bojack's really learning that lesson, especially stuff with drugs, because you can't even tell what's reality. And I thought that was really well done in this season. Bojack's addiction and him having to face past shit that he's done, having to live with that. Fascinating, and I want to really see where that goes. And the season doesn't really end on a very poignant note like season 4, where it just ends with Bojack smiling, which just left me going, oh no, I need season 5 right now. This season just sort of ends with Diane driving off as she's just dropped off Bojack at rehab, and she's just driving into the distance, and she's looking at the sunset, and she goes into this tunnel, and the episode just ends there. And I like that. I like that it broke my expectations, because I was expecting a really dark, nasty ending to the season, when really the whole season just kind of ended on this very mellow, neutral note, and I thought that was really refreshing. So, great. I really enjoyed it. My only worry going forward with Bojack is that I don't want it to go on for too long. And I feel like with this season, like, I won't say the cracks are starting to show, because I love this season. It made me laugh, made me cry. It did all the great things it normally does. I love this show. I've rewatched the first 4 seasons so many times, and I've had so many laughs and joys, and it's left me thinking. Not many shows do that. So it is fantastic, but I'm a bit worried with this whole cyclical nature of Bojack, how some of the characters do seem very much stuck in cycles, and I thought season 4 was about breaking those things, about coming out and moving forward into brand new territory. And I feel like this show got very experimental and different this season, which kept it, you know, alive and fresh, and I felt like, you know, this season is very much justified. I've enjoyed season 5 very much. But where do we go from here? And you know, and as I was saying, the cracks are starting to show, but I'm starting to see a lot of repeating storylines. Like, I feel like Bojack doesn't quite revert back to his season 1 to 3 version of himself this season. He still feels like a continuation of the better version of Bojack you see at the end of season 4. But obviously he goes to that drug kind of hallucination, which kind of brings him back quite a bit. So his addiction to the drugs kind of pulled him back into that dark territory again. So I don't want to see this constant thing of, will Bojack get better? Will he not? Because really, if he doesn't at this point with the rehab, for me that's kind of it. And I think if you're going to answer that question, you should answer that question very soon. You know, you're 5 seasons in now, and you don't want to keep repeating stuff. You know, repeating the same jokes, repeating the same characters. And Raphael Bob's Waxberg, the creator of the show, seems like a great guy. I've seen interviews with him. He's mentioned in one particular quote, and I might try and find it online, you can look it up, but I think he said something about he doesn't mind the idea of the show going on for a very long time. Like, he could just keep telling stories, and he hasn't got an end in mind for the series. There isn't a definitive ending in his mind as the writer, which is a little worrying for me, because I'm like, I don't want it to go on forever. I think, you know, quality over quantity. I would much rather just have 6 or 7 seasons and that's it. Leave it, let it be a gem and a masterpiece of Netflix and TV, and end it there. Because I think if you just carry on something for the sake of it because you can, that's bad. That's not good storytelling. You should know as a writer where a definitive end is, because the problem is if you don't, you get into this bad habit of where shows just, they could have ended at a great point, but then they keep prolonging themselves for the sake of it, like Community, I'd say. You know, had a great opportunity to end in season 3, and it just kind of keeps prolonging itself until season 6, and you know, the subsequent seasons aren't as good. Now, I'm not saying this season ends in a way, like Bojack, I'm not saying this season ends in a particular way where you could end the series. I think we do need to see Bojack in rehab. I think there's still more story to tell. But I don't think there's an awful lot left to tell. I think we're past the midway point of the arcs of all the characters. I think like season 4 could have been the midway point for the show. And now we're going towards the end, the latter half of the season, well, the series, the whole narrative. And I think season 6 could be the last for me. And I'd still love it. You could end it there. Or season 7. I'd say 1 or 2 more seasons. Maybe a season 8 if you really think that you could do that. But I think season 6 or 7 should be the last. Not because I want to see the show get cancelled or, you know, stopped, because I love it. But I don't want to see it go on forever and ever. But anyway, I love this season. And I'm excited for season 6, but I'm not in a desperate need for it like I was at the end of season 4. I can probably rewatch these for a while, enjoy them, get them into, you know, my mind, and let them settle, let the dust settle on season 5. And yeah, I just really loved it, and I don't regret binging it. Like some people might. No, I think it was really worth it. Just sit down and just watch it all in one go. It was great. I was waiting for it all year. So, that's my thoughts on Bojack Season 5. Let me know what you guys think. Did you enjoy Season 5? How do you rank it and compare it to the seasons? I think it's quite hard to compare each season of Bojack because they will do something very different while also maintaining similar DNA and, you know, keeping these characters you love and remember. So yeah, loved it. What do you guys think? And join me next time for whatever video I make. Might be Season 6 of Bojack. Won't take that long. But yeah. Take care. Thank you very much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Take care and goodbye.